Beginning. All right. So I'd like to welcome everybody. Thank you for spending a little bit of your Tuesday evening with us, the Heritage Commission members here, as well as members of the public. I'm going to ask for some patience. This is really the first time that I'm operating a hybrid model meeting. So we'll do our best to do what we need to do in person, but also remotely. I'm not seeing anybody currently in our Zoom feed, but there'll be an opportunity for those that do join to participate as if they were here. So Dan, if I could switch over to the slide presentation.
You should introduce us first.
That's part of the slide presentation.
Okay. Our pictures are up there?
Yeah.
Here he comes.
You don't see him. He's not there.
No. See me all you want.
All right. Thank you, Dan.
No problem.
All right. So we're all here this evening because we're going to talk about a review of demolition for a property or a structure at 10 Wadley Street. And my name is Jay Myers. I'm the chair of the Heritage Commission, and I'll allow the other members to introduce themselves. You can put a name with a face.
John Merkel.
Julie Gilman, Select Board Rep.
John Gruder, Planning Board Rep.
Pam Chatham?
Bill Campbell.
Thank you, everybody. Most often, we don't operate in the public view like this, but it's good to put a name with a face. So our agenda this evening, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Heritage Commission does and our purpose, and what brings us here this evening, what kind of triggered the process. We'll open the floor to public comment, giving the property owners a chance to talk about their proposal, and then the public to comment and discuss. And then the commission will go about a discussion and process of advisement. So just because we have an opportunity to talk about what we do, the Heritage Commission, easily stated, does for the historical resources what a conservation commission does for natural resources. We offer valuable means for local government to manage, recognize, and protect historical and cultural resources. And this process involves advising and assisting local boards, conducting inventories, educating the public, providing information about historical resources and preservation, and serves as a resource for revitalization efforts. There are over 50 heritage commissions in the state of New Hampshire. So what triggered us to offer a public hearing this evening was that on July 20th, Baker Properties filed a building permit application for, quote, the demolition of existing structure, rebuilding and design attached, and this is 10 Wadley Street. And that, because that property and structure, well, the structure is over 50 years old, that triggers the Heritage Commission to do a demolition review. So on August 3rd, a group of us met at the site with the property owner who allowed us to tour the property. And this review committee agreed that the structure contributed to the character and nature of the neighborhood, and as a result asked for a delay of demolition of the permit for 30 days, and to hold a public hearing, which we scheduled within that 30-day period, and that's what brings us here today. Sort of reflecting on the process, it reminded me of what I witnessed before in terms of a surgery where a surgeon pauses the procedure. Everybody that's assembled in the operating room stops and they review what it is that they're about to do. And this is essentially what we're doing. We're paused and giving everybody a chance to review what is about to perhaps take place and to voice their observations and opinions with that. Once a demolition happens, like a surgery, There's no turning back. What's done is done. So this is our pause. This is our opportunity to talk about this. There aren't many demo reviews that make it to the hearing level, but I do want to offer that the two most recent for us was at 374 Water Street, which is essentially at the end of the Swayze Parkway. Our hearing took place on November the 18th, and despite our advisement to renovate or recondition the property, that structure was removed, and a new house was built in its place. Most recently, 110 High Street, we had a public hearing in August 2019. We advised that the property be renovated or reconditioned, and it was. And so 110 High Street is currently under renovation, and you can see that as you pass going up High Street. So 10 Wadley Street is at the corner of Forest and Wadley. It falls within what is a proposed neighborhood heritage area. This was a...
Chair?
Yep.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
It's just on a procedural area that you haven't done before.
Oh,
so,
okay.
We need to actually formally open the public hearing now. You know, your introduction to what the Demolition Review Committee does.
Okay.
It's fine, but now that we're going to talk about the property.
Oh, I thought we opened up after. But sure.
I'm trying to remember from the select board. No, we open the public hearing, you'll give your presentation, ask for public comment, then we close the public hearing, and that's when we have our deliberation.
Oh, okay.
So I move to open the public hearing on demolition of 10 Wadley Street.
Thank you, Julie.
Second.
Any further discussion on opening the meeting to public hearing?
Okay.
All right, motion is so moved.
Aye.
I guess I'd call a vote.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, so we'll call a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, so moved. All right, so I'll continue?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Julie.
All right.
Thank you for your patience. So yeah, 10 Wadley Street, it falls within a proposed neighborhood heritage area, and this is an area that was surveyed by the New Hampshire Division of Historic Resources in 2019. Information about this area is on our webpage, as is all the other projects that we have undertaken most recently. To be specific, in that document, you'll find that this structure,
Sorry.
the structure was estimated to have been built in 1870 as a single-family residence. It is a story and a half, a 3-by-2 bay cape with a brick foundation, clapboards and flat trim, 6-by-1 and 6/6 windows. One of the twin brick stove chimneys still exists. There is an L on concrete block foundation in the back. The upper story is cantilevered, and there is an attached shed and shop. So just in some photos around the property, from the side, from the Forest Street view, and from the back, and the driveway side of the house, with the shop to the left of that sidewalk. And thus ends my introduction and presentation. So I'll open the floor to any comment or discussion about.
The lady from, we have to have her next.
I'm sorry?
This lady here is, are you the Baker rep?
Is anybody here from Baker Properties? Anybody here from the property? All right.
Oh, dear.
Okay.
Well, one of the things that, Mr. Chair, that I think the public needs to know is why we chose to recommend preservation of the building. And some of our discussion then,
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sure.
With the map.
I know it's not projecting. Some of what we went through in looking at the building and where it sits in the neighborhood, where it sits on the site, and its age and condition, we felt that it was more appropriate to keep it there as much as possible, maybe with some renovation, but it's a good example of how that neighborhood was settled. And so on my part, when we decided that we thought there was enough integrity to the building to recommend that it be reused. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, we don't have a statement at all from the owner of the property or representative? That's unusual, I would think.
Yeah, we do not.
Okay, well,
I confirmed confirmed that they were notified. So the expectation
okay.
was that they.
Well, let's hear the public anyway, see how
Yeah,
they
yeah.
feel.
If anybody would like to say anything on behalf of the property, or,
I think I wanted to hear more from the board about why you thought it should be preserved and kind of walk us through the building. I look at it every day. What pieces of it were important to you in terms of, structure and integrity? I walked through the site previously. I've been in the house several times. What are you guys looking at in terms of why it should be saved? It's a very old house.
Jay, do you want to go back to some of the slides?
yeah, if I can. Dan, can I go back to the slides?
We haven't perfected this part yet.
It's tricky.
You should be able to.
Okay, here we go.
We'll just call them.
There you go. Well, I felt that the original house, the Cape style, had enough integrity, and its presentation to the street and on that corner was a traditional way that these houses would be situated, much like the one on High Street, with the house here and a barn back further. In this instance, they've added a couple different connections to the barn, but those can be removed. They're not original to the house, so it's taking them off would not be any kind of damage to the house. And the same on that weird thing in the back. If you can just, yeah, that cantilever. I don't know what they were thinking, but but having an L shape off of a small house like that is fairly common. Because everybody wants more room, right? Everybody finds that they need some space. And then that's what got connected to the workshop in the back. So its growth over time is typical of the kind of house you'd see in a town like this.
Do we know what they want to replace it with? Has anyone seen anything?
We actually do, but
not
the people aren't here. And this is kind of why we called this, because what we want is to have it fit the neighborhood. And personally, I would not mind if they just cut down that addition at all. And yes, it's pretty sad inside.
But not,
but it needs to be replaced with something that won't, if I can think of a polite way of saying, be an eyesore.
well, one thing I have to say about this part of the discussion is that it really isn't our purview to consider what's going to replace it. We're really only talking about this building on its site. So although we do know what's going to replace it, it's not up for
And to be
public
fair, the property owners really did try to make it fit. I mean, they're not going to build right out to the street edge, which is what I was really afraid of at first.
But we don't know that for a fact.
Well,
Yeah, we just need to talk about the
yeah,
building.
But my take on it is that it contributes to the neighborhood. And the historical survey, that 200-page document that was prepared back in 2018, acknowledged that this property was a contributing property to the character of that neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, that neighborhood is an excellent example of how non-conforming uses work. And nothing works according to current zoning. And to have that building torn down for the neighborhood, what's going to be put back is an unknown.
Yep.
And it's not in an historic district, so they won't be discussing it either. So the only consideration we have is this group, and our decision is only a recommendation. We
Well,
can't.
then I have a procedural question because, so you asked for a 30-day.
Come up to the mic and introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Mary D. Hanson, Walnut Street. Just a procedural question where you asked for a 30-day extension for the demolition, but now we're like 29 days into that 30 days. So like, is it even going to mean anything?
Well, we had to work with the owner for.
Who's
we
not
have-
here, so
In our zoning
obviously.
right, in our zoning ordinance, we were very conservative with the process because we copied or looked at Concord and a couple other towns that have a 90-day, work stop on demolition.
Right.
And we knew that wasn't going to fly here, so we cut it down to 30 days. And in that time, because the owner already has the information that we have this public hearing, within that 30 days, they had an opportunity to approach us to see what it was we were trying to say,
Right.
by having this done. And
But there's like in 2 days from now, they can start knocking it down. Is that right?
see, technically, at their own risk.
Yeah.
Because this building, I'm dominating the meeting here, but because this building doesn't require site plan review from the planning board, it's just a single-family lot, it's not a development, it's not going to be 4 things on there. Because I'm told that it is told by the code enforcement officer that what's proposed is going to meet all of the setbacks that are required in a residential lot. And so it doesn't have to go to the zoning board. And so the only place to make a decision is with the code enforcement officer. So after we make our recommendation tonight, it will go to him. And then he has the authority to tell the applicant, I want to go with this recommendation, or go ahead and let it go. Procedurally, you can, or a person can appeal to the zoning board on the code enforcement officer's decision. That has to be done within 30 days of his decision, and the owner can go ahead and do it at his risk. So,
Okay, thank you.
Paul DeGrandis, 23 Oak Street. I live about 4 doors or so down from that intersection, on the next intersection on the street over. Our house is a very similar setup with an old attached barn that we've now turned into a living space. We've been going to great lengths, my wife and I have been going to great lengths to preserve that barn. We're in the process of trying to rebuild the exterior. It's not an easy process, but we're trying to put life back into the neighborhood. The thing that really swung us, originally we were going to try to demolish that barn, but we saw a map. Our house is from 1862. We saw a map from the early 1900s that was hand-drawn, and our house was on that map with the barn drawn on it, just like that. So that house has been just like that for that long. And once we saw that map, our hearts were swayed. We were determined to preserve the house in that exact same configuration. So there's other people in the neighborhood trying to put an effort it would be a real shame to see new homeowners not realize that, there's so much care in that neighborhood to try to keep it alive the way that is. So,
Thank you.
for your consideration.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nate Piper, 8 Forest Street. I live right next to Paul. And our house is the same vintage. And I'd just quickly would like to say that I'm not opposed to any demolition, and I'm not opposed to new construction and building, but when it warrants it. Cherie's house on the corner there that's under review tonight is a good representation of our neighborhood. There's a lot of small houses that built this community a long time ago, and they're all from about the same age. And as Paul said, we all go to great lengths to try and preserve those, and it's very representative of the neighborhood. As Paul said, when we're renovating our house, we're opening things up where we're finding cut nails, and we're finding different saw marks on different pieces of wood, both hand tools and circular saws and vertical saws and the whole gamut. And probably in our house, we have a lot of reused timber. And I understand the interest in wanting to demolish something and do it new, but when that's gone, that is gone. And the building materials that are used today are substandard, and our house has been shaking with those railroad tracks for 130 years or more, and it's still in perfect condition. And we do little bits to keep it going, but I can't reiterate what Paul said enough is we're all making the effort. So it's unfortunate that somebody's just taking the easy road out, and it's frustrating, and I don't know how to communicate it better than that. The other thing about the slides is there are some funky additions to the house, but it reminds me of the Jackson House in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where you can walk through it and you can see where they've added all these different parts because they had another child or they had this. And I do a lot of work at Strawberry Bank. Same thing. There's a story to be told there. And going back to it, I agree. If something really needs to be demolished because it's a safety issue, public safety, everything else, that's fine. This is not that case. This is being demolished strictly for profit. And I don't begrudge anybody for making money, but at the same time, this is a unique neighborhood, and it's got artifacts in it that need to be preserved. So I don't know how to say it more than that. I'm also in the marine industry. I work on historic boats, and we go through this all the time. How much do you save of an old boat, or how much do you replace? And it's a struggle, and I appreciate what you guys are putting into this because it's not black and white. It's a very gray area. But in a scenario like this is not life or death. It's not one answer or the other. There are nuances, and people can put in the effort to represent this neighborhood, represent this community, and the people that lived in that neighborhood built this community. And I just want that to be taken into consideration. Thank you guys for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go next because I live next door. So we're just going to go down the line.
Yeah.
My name's Jennifer Legere. I live at 6 Forest Street. So I actually am the backyard view that someone stood in my driveway to take one of those pictures. And it is an old home. It does meet the character of the neighborhood. I've heard story after story after story from Cherie, the previous owner, about the life that she's lived there. She was born in that house. They raised rabbits in the backyard. And I believe this house has only had one owner in its history, maybe two. I don't know what's on, record for it. There's very few homes nowadays that have had single family ownership for such long periods of time. So there is just a giant amount of history that goes along with this house, including this galvanized steel fence. You can remove the fence, I'm cool with that. But the house itself does have a lot of character. That brick is original, and one of my best friends is a builder of historic homes, and he looked at the house with me because I did entertain an offer on that house because we wanted to preserve it as, a unit for families. And Sheree was actually really, considering selling to us because she wanted another family to go there and to keep the house in its original format. So even her as an owner, I think it kind of pained her that she sold the house this way, but because there is a lot of value to her in having it be part of another family with that value of raising a family in it. It is unique. It is a very interesting building. There is a lot of renovation that needs to get done. The brickwork and stuff has not been maintained. But it's beautiful. There are original resources that can be renovated, and do have value. We did look up at the prices for all of that renovation, and it would be on par with, current house values if we did a full renovation. So we looked at actually all of those costs. I think it's a cool house. I would keep it. I mean, I have to look at the backside with the kerosene tank outside every day. It's a little unique, but that's part of the uniqueness of that house. So I do like it. I don't want to stare at a new
Thing.
block without character. There's a lot to be said about it.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if I might add something which is not necessarily part of our discussion, but I like to bring it up whenever I can. The gentleman that talked about the quality of materials that go into a new construction as opposed to old construction. I just want to put out there whenever I can that if Exeter wants to be a sustainable town, that's the first thing you look at, is looking at reusing the stock we already have in place and making it as tight as you can. I just had my windows checked, so I'm not getting new ones. But that, gets overlooked a lot by people who want to build, or are convinced they need to build something new.
I was going to perhaps ask the panel and maybe return to the procedural question just for clarity. I mean, we had two instances where we came to hearing like this. One ended in a demolition and one did not. I don't have enough history to really to speak on the procedure. I know Julie did talk about some procedure that would take place following this meeting, but John, perhaps maybe you know more just in terms of what led to one being demolished and the other.
Well, I know 110 High Street was owned by the hospital.
And
I'm very familiar with that one as I live across the street, and was in that building when it was told by a person that knows buildings, you can't say that. There's nothing you can do with it. It got to come down. And finally, the hospital decided to sell it to whomever, and the renovation company is working on it now, and it's coming along very nicely. It will look on the outside like it did. I'm not sure that the bow window was there in 1850 when the house was built. However, it's one of those things where it shows the renovation that maybe in 1870 or somewhere along the line they put that in. Mm-hmm. The rest of it's the same. The barn is the same, mm-hmm. and the barn has been enlarged a little bit to get a two-car garage. But if you look at it now, it's pretty much what it was then. And the people are doing a very good job, I think, on changing it. Now inside, it was very tough. Tough to save anything other than the bones. Mm-hmm. And but that's fine. If they did the same, somebody did the same thing with 10 Wadley, that would be fine with me also.
The hospital owned it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And never did
correct
maintenance. And then because it wasn't being maintained, they wanted to tear it down.
Right.
I think we made that point to them several times, and kind of
And once they heard us, they decided, well, they'll sell it. They have no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in doing so and making that decision, we told the owner that we were going to recommend it remain. And one of the options is to, find a buyer, find a different contractor that would, help you out. And in the end, they chose to sell the property, and the people that bought it are doing this work. And because on that one, on High Street is in a historic district, so that one did have to go before the Historic District Commission, and they had our recommendation to use in making their decision about what would happen at that property, because the HDC can decide to prevent a demolition if it's within a historic district.
But
That's true.
What saved 110 High Street was the High Street group and the people who cared for the area, who came out at the hearing like this, and who came out at the historic district. Now, poor 374 Water Street, nobody showed up but the family that owned it. And that's what happened.
I think we did have one person that provided some public comment.
Yeah, but
This one,
so a group like you is what we need. In fact, we have openings on this board from time to time for really enthusiastic people such as yourselves.
And we can give you training.
Yes.
Jennifer.
I have books.
So, procedurally, I know that this goes to the building inspector for review. My understanding, when I made my original offer on the house, is that any rebuilding that was done had to be done within the original configuration of the house. And the proposal that I'm seeing on record is not even close to that. So how procedurally do we manage that appeal process? You had started to kind of allude to an appeal, so they'll take your recommendation here, whatever that is. It goes back to Doug Eastman for review. He makes his decision, whatever that is. And if we wanted to appeal, how do we go through that process and talk about that? Because my understanding is that the proposal that's in place doesn't meet code for the town.
I don't really understand why someone told you that anything new had to fit the footprint of what exists, because that's not correct. Whoever is working on that site and whatever they're going to replace, as long as it stays within the setbacks from the property line, rear property line, sides, and the front, then they're okay. They don't have to, they can go forward.
Does that apply to percentage of lot coverage as well?
Probably.
Yeah,
Probably.
it should.
That would be required.
Yeah.
but Julie, doesn't it have to at least go to the planning board for a review?
Not a little single-family,
Not a single
They're
family.
not if they were subdividing it,
yeah.
we would see it.
I was
From what I
thinking way
understand-
back, Julie, to the barn next to you that was taken down. I thought they had to build on the same footprint until they got permission. They went to the board and got permission to move 20 feet forward or something like that.
That was a little crazy case.
Okay.
That was an exception to the rule, but I think that was more proposed than required.
I imagine Doug's opinion can be appealed, but I'm not sure to which board.
It would be the ZBA.
ZBA? So that would be, I guess, what would happen if he said, yes, go ahead.
DBA is which board?
The zoning board.
ZBA, okay.
If the only way to know, excuse me, as far as I know, how the building inspector, or when the building inspector makes his decision, I would just, if that's a road that you're interested in doing, call him every day and find out, and then you can put in an application to appear at the zoning board for an appeal to an administrative decision.
Good evening. My name is Matt Silva, and I'm sorry, I'm also have a raspier voice than normal today. I am part of the rebuilding team for Wadley Street, so I apologize I came in a couple minutes late. You guys had already started talking about that, and I'm just playing catch up right now. So I don't have anything necessarily directly to say, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions. The ones I can, I will, and the ones that I can't, I'll be straightforward and honest with you about in that. I know that in the past there's a little bit of opposition about the people that own this particular project and some other intentions they may have, though I know that for me personally, we're looking at just redevelopment of this one particular site. From a professional opinion, I've been in the building industry for over 16 years, which, despite how tired I may look today, is quite a bit of my life. Our company specializes in building high-performance, energy-efficient, net-zero energy homes. We look at the environmental impacts of everything that we do, largely. That's our motivating decision. And on a project like this, I was asked to come through and give a professional opinion on whether or not that house could be rebuilt, redesigned in a way that would meet code, that would be beneficial to the overall health and welfare and safety of what's there. I don't know about the other parts of history here enough to speak to that, but I can say that our intention right now is looking at that house. It can't be essentially rebuilt to meet code in the way that it should be. We like to look at, if I build a house, will it stand for another 400 years, and will it make sense that it's there? That particular house, I don't see that has that opportunity in it. In general, in straightforward candor and awkwardness, I don't, I'm non-confrontational. I'm just here to just explain this other side to the story, and I'm 100% happy to answer questions if anybody on the board has them. But largely, I felt compelled to at least say we're looking at building a house here that I think is extremely beneficial comparatively to what's there right now. And I don't know the historical value of the house necessarily, but in code compliance, I do know where that house stands right now, and it won't be satisfactory to Doug. And we have had largely a lot of those conversations at this moment in time. I'm sure there's more, so I'll just leave it with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. You mentioned something about being part of the Wadley rebuilding team. Can you explain? I'm not familiar.
So if this particular 10 Wadley Street project goes forward, it's intended that we would be the contractor for that project and rebuilding it. So,
gotcha.
As I said, I do know enough, that there's some history about development that goes on somewhere else, but we were selected because of the types of homes that we specialize in building, and that this particular lot and this particular home felt like a good fit for that opportunity. So.
Now, when we met with you earlier, you had some pictures of what you were going to do. Do you have those tonight?
So, unfortunately, this is my first time meeting with this board, but you might have met with the actual owners of the property.
Okay.
I was actually just here, I didn't know that I was here as procedural matter, just to understand if there are any items that the board cared about. We do a lot of historical renovations, so anytime that we can salvage anything that's in a building, we will, because honestly, one part, that's a trend that people like to see and have a story to tell about their homes. On the other side, if there's something worth saving, we do. So I haven't been in front of this board before or met with you guys, unfortunately.
There was another fellow, I think.
Okay. They all-
Yeah, go ahead. You.
Hi, Eileen Flockhart. Looking at the big picture, I know we can't turn the clock back on who's bought the lot and what they'd like to do, but I think Julie's point about sustainability and other issues that pertain to the neighborhood and the feel of it, you'd look at something like a house like that and you'd say, oh, we must know some young couple that wants to take this on, that could afford that house, that would be willing over the course of 10 or 15 years to do what needed to be done and raise a family and be there. The concern I have is both in sustainability and all of that, as well as the neighborhood sense of community. And is this going to be something that somebody like the folks here who live in this neighborhood could have afforded when we were starting out? And I know that now, our house, when I bought it, was $49,900. So we know those numbers don't exist anymore. But when you look at homes for young folks starting out, and if they start at $4,000 and $5,000 and $6,000 and $700,000, it just makes you cry. And I hate to see that this community and this town can't find a way to make homes of a size and in a lot that's, in a very friendly neighborhood, couldn't make something and design it and build it or revamp it and restore it to be able to afford it. And, that's something I just sort of like to throw out there. I know it's sort of spitting in the wind sometimes, but I don't stop doing that just to make the point. But anyhow, that's my thought.
Thank you, Eileen.
Doug Flockhart, 7 Jacks Court. We live on the other side of the proposed Heritage District. Unfortunately, we discovered the hard way, Julie, that our house was not built with stuff that's better than they have now. Our house was built with fire sale scrap. But like most of the houses in this neighborhood, it fits in, and when we renovated, we made sure that it still fit in with the neighborhood. We know a lot of the people who live in this neighborhood because our daughter lives in this neighborhood. And we know and have been in their houses and have seen the work that they have done with their own sweat and toil to maintain those houses and to improve them, improve the neighborhood, but at the same time maintain the character of the neighborhood. I strongly urge you to recommend that this house not be demolished because it does fit in with the character of the neighborhood. It fits in with the adjacent houses. It fits in with your proposed heritage district. It's one of the things that you're trying to preserve in trying to create a heritage district is the character of the neighborhood. I strongly feel, I have not seen the design for what's proposed for the site to replace this house, but I strongly feel that it's not going to fit in with the character of the neighborhood. I don't see how it could. You said that you can't renovate this house and bring it up to code. When you renovate a house, you don't have to fully bring it up to code. There's not a house in the historic district that meets the code. And I'm an architect. I do know what I'm talking about. This house can be saved. It can be renovated, just like the one on High Street.
Hi, Lindsay Sonnet, 1 Salem Street, so I am just around the corner. And
Your first name, I missed that.
Lindsay
Hi,
Sonnet.
Lindsay. Thank you.
My husband and I are also the proud owners of a very old house that needs a lot of work, and we are going through the painstaking process of bringing it back to life while preserving, a lot of the great qualities that I love everything that my neighbors have said, and I wouldn't want to rob people of the experience of doing that, because there's a lot to it. So I'm very much in favor of you guys recommending that this not be demolished for all of the reasons. Can you describe at all what it might look like, the house?
Sure.
And what the siding would be? I'm really curious about that.
Is it okay if I just hear the rest of the public comments and I'll get up one time and speak?
Can you even talk about these?
I don't think
Short of
Yeah, but and most everybody had an opportunity to speak before you got here. Go ahead, Nate.
One more thing, Mr. Chair. Nate Piper, 8 Forest. There's no doubt about it. I think Mr. Silva can build a fantastic house. Net zero, the whole bit. I feel like the discussion here is whether this house should be saved. I mean, it has nothing to do really with what's going to be. I mean, I think Lindsay has, everybody in the neighborhood has very serious concerns about what could be there. But I feel like we're jumping the gun. I mean, what we're talking about tonight is whether an old house should be saved. And that's where I stand right now. I mean, I've gone through our house. Paul has gone through his house. Lindsay's going through hers. Everybody's going through their houses. And I understand where Mr. Silva's coming from in terms of meeting modern code, but I agree with Doug. I mean, I have lots of friends who have restored old houses, and we do the same thing with boats. You're not going to meet modern code standards, but you are going to save existing timber, existing wood, existing character. So I feel like that's where the discussion is, and I just wanted to say that. And again, thank you guys for what you do, and I think that's the important point here.
Yeah, one of the things about discussing what's proposed for if this building is torn down is really not in our purview, and it's not going to influence our decision. So if you want to discuss it with this fellow, do it outside somewhere, but not in here.
That's fine. And so Jen Legere, 6 Forest again. So there are buyers who do want to renovate this house. I was one of them, and I was outbid for it. And I live right next door. I was looking to, buy another home that I could give to my children. We were talking about that sense of community and continuing that community. This was going to be for my children so that they had a place to live right next to me that was affordable housing and would be in our backyard. And I think in our neighborhood, that really fits the vision of what we want is affordable housing available to the community, to our children, accessible. They're not paying $4,000 a month in rent somewhere that we can have right next to us. So this would be really nice, a good starter home as a classic example to save, for our children, for young families who want to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to have a really cute historic home. There is value in that, and I think people will buy it. I would.
Yeah, thank you to those that stood back up to support your position, and I want to apologize to those that are viewing online. It's identified we have some folks that want to join. So, Dan, can I activate Janelle Chander's feed? And then, hello, Janelle.
So this is Joel. Schunder.
Joel. Oh, all right.
But we are.
Thank you, Joel.
Next to each other, and I do want to make a statement tonight. So I'm speaking on behalf of both Janelle and myself. We are the we live at 93 Park Street, which is about 1,000 feet from the.
Can you hear her?
We're discussing tonight.
Joel, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for just for a moment. Dan, we're having a hard time hearing. Joel, is there a way to turn up the volume? Thank you for your patience for those that are on the Zoom feed. All right. Joel, you hear
me? Do you hear me better now?
No, it's about the same. Dan, okay. Is there a way we can improve that?
Try talking louder.
Let me, I don't know if there's a way I can do it on the computer. No. Joel, yeah, you may just have to speak a little louder.
Okay, no, I'm I'm mostly shouting right now.
All right, I see Dan's working on our IT issue. We'll wait to. Here we go. Yeah, that's much better. Okay. All right, I think we're good.
You hear me now?
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's great.
Oh, okay. So yes, I'm here with my wife Janelle, and we live on Park Street, about 1,000 feet from the property tonight. Obviously, according to the Heritage Commission's meeting on the 17th, the developer who I guess we're sort of meeting seeks to demolish the structure at 10 Wadley Street and replace it with one that's either known or presumed to be larger. But tonight's meeting is strictly about the demolition of the structure, and that of course raises the question of why we're here. Obviously, the Heritage Commission holds demolition reviews, which in the case of this property, you say you paused for 30 days. And at last week's select board meeting, I guess it's actually a public hearing, and that you've already recommended against the demolition. And on the grounds that this contributes to the heritage of the town, and most structures in our town do. But you also have said in the past, members of this committee, that you have no power over demolition. And those are your words, and or over things like additions to existing structures or new construction. And so my understanding from things the commission has said is this commission cannot legally prevent the tear down of this property. And so if the developer does decide to build a larger structure, we already have zoning regulations in place that will constrain what they do. And if they want to get an exception to those restrictions, they have to go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. And I think they would it sounds like they would meet a lot of resistance there from abutters. But in terms of why we're here tonight, several times it's been brought up that this property is in a quote unquote neighborhood heritage district, and that this, I believe you had said at the August 17 meeting, this was really like a litmus test for that. But the neighborhood heritage district does not presently exist. It's been something that the commission has been pursuing top down for over a year in spite of growing grassroots opposition. And the boundaries seem to be shrinking due to property owners who are learning about these actions and expressing their unwillingness as property owners to have the town take certain property rights, such as structural demolition, or to impose a bureaucracy of the sort that I think, while friendly, I think tonight's meeting really only hints at. And so, while the current evidence that we have based on a recent survey points to strong but not universal support on Forest Street and only on Forest Street for granting the town the power over demolition of structures in the area, tonight we're talking about a Wadley Street property, and we know that the owner of that property would clearly not have chosen to opt into that because they've knowingly sold the property for basically renovation. And so, if the town does want to take the architectural rights to that property for a fair price using eminent domain, then you should do that, or the town should do that. Or if the commission wants to pursue fundraising from some combination of private or public sources, then to preserve properties like this, then absolutely do that. But according to the members of the Heritage Commission, it has no authority to stop this demolition. And I think if you want to avoid these kinds of teardowns in the future, you need a strategy now to save other properties later, and do so in a way that property owners in the area will actually choose to opt themselves into. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that gives me some ideas for new legislation. But yeah, just to be clear, the heritage neighborhood area is still in discussion stage. It's not been defined or approved by the town or anything like that. The reference to it is because we had the survey done of the neighborhood, and this building was included as a contributing resource to that report.
The Heritage Commission also is, its jurisdiction is town-wide. And it's anything over 50 years old, anywhere in the town, other than mobile homes. So it's forgetting the fact that the heritage area doesn't exist right now is a good point, but it's not one that we are judging it on. We're judging the building for what it is.
Yeah, not at all. If there was no heritage or neighborhood heritage area proposed, and is still proposed, the Demolition Review Committee would have come to the same conclusion. it adds to the character and nature of the neighborhood, as some of the abutters have identified as to why their properties are dear to them, and the character of that is something that they want to preserve. We heard their voices refer to this property in much the same way. And so when we did view the site, that was our feeling as well.
Okay. I think.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
So just hearing the public comments so far, and where I step into here, I don't necessarily know, but I'll give it a shot anyway. In hearing comments, my goal of being here today was to hear what the public opinion was. Like, I am not a developer. My company, Profile Homes, started with the #1 goal in mind of how to make net zero energy construction affordable for every single person that wanted to build a home. So if I came to any of you and said, I'm going to build you a new home, would you like an energy bill or not? That was my goal. And the goal with that was to make it so that everyone, including myself, it's funny. It's like chefs probably go home and eat sandwiches. Housekeepers might have dirty houses. My wife will tell you that she's been begging me to finish the basement for 4 years. We get it, right? That's what we do. I'm not coming in to come down. I'm not a tear down and rebuild human being in such a way unless the property dictates that. Now, I don't know that anyone has found any distinctive heritage to it. My goal, again, for being here was to hear, what does the public think, right? I want to be a good neighbor, be a good steward. We have historical projects that our company's based in Portsmouth. I don't live in Portsmouth, but that's where my company is based, sometimes by accident. And we do a lot of historical work there. I'm renovating currently the original fire station to the city of Portsmouth. I could have easily torn that building down. There was no way I was going to do that. To your point, sir, and I forget your name, you're right. There are times where historical value overrides code, and you do have to look to a building inspector to look the other way from that. And we do that, but is it for something like this? I'm just being very clear and honest with you. It isn't. It is if there's historical significance. This town has a lot of it, but in this particular case, I'm surprised that there is such opposition to tearing it down. At the same time, what I'm hearing is there's an assumption that we're trying to build a house that somebody's going to come in and pay $1 million for, and it's going to start to gentrify in some way a neighborhood that will that changes the community out there. And I don't know what's going to go on after this in an area that we're not even talking about today, but I know is in your minds. I'm just talking about rebuilding that house to make it sustainable, have a better long-term value, and be something that you all are maybe generally surprised about what we do. You have no introduction to my company, so you don't really know, but I can tell you I'm not here today to waste my time to do something like this. So as it was mentioned from Joel, I forget his last name, this is a scenario where I'm happy to take feedback. As Julie had mentioned, if you would like to talk to me outside, I'm happy to have that conversation with you. That was my goal in being here, to hear what your opinions were. As to whether or not that building should still stand, I don't believe any of you, unfortunately, have been inside that building. I personally would not take that project on if I was told to renovate that project, because there's an oil tank outside of it. There's a reason for that. The assumption is just being made, and I feel like it's too proud, quite honestly, that we're not going to build a house that a first-time or second-time home buyer can buy, that can raise their family in and bring people into the neighborhood. So that's the types of homes we build. And your research of my company would show you that, and that's why I was asked particularly to build this house, because I'm not a developer. I think that kind of makes as much of the point as I can here. I don't know, unfortunately, what jurisdiction you all have. to whether or not you can say if there was historical significance, I can promise you I'd be the first person to try to save the building. But it's falling in on itself, and I don't think anybody but you all have had the chance to get in there and actually see what's happening there, and that being a difference. So.
Yeah, thank you, Matt.
I just had two comments. One is that we're not considering any other thing that may be happening in the neighborhood that's not part of this piece of property. And the other is that we did get to go inside. And our opinions differ, I guess, on the quality of what remains and the amount of work that would go into it. So.
I may have a different take than you, Julie, on this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would like to wish the owner had been here so that we could have asked him what was in his mind when he decided he's going to tear it down rather than renovate it. The hospital, which I wasn't at the first one, the example there, but I was involved with the hospital, and they were very upfront about what they were going to do, and what their feelings were. This house is owned by the fellow who's got, if he gets his way.
Don't go there.
I'm sorry. He's got. We're looking at a whole bunch of houses like you would like to build across the street. Why would he want another one? Why not let this one be renovated?
I don't think we can talk about that, though.
Well,
we can.
I'm wondering why he wants to renovate. That's all, I guess. And I think that what we have, what everybody's been saying, is that this house contributes to the character of the neighborhood, and I'm wondering why he doesn't want to do to go along with that theory of buying it, fixing it up, like at least one other person in the neighborhood wanted to do.
Well, people see different values in solutions.
We have some more public comment on our Zoom feed. Can I get Keith to some access?
Can you hear me?
We can. Hi, Keith.
Hi, this is Keith Patterson. I'm with Baker Properties. I've been on the meeting all evening, but I haven't had ability to speak. So I apologize for apparently no showing. I was not no showing. I was in the background, but I think Matt spoke pretty well to our thought process on the house. I mean, our objective with the new house is to try to have a house that fits in with the buildings that are around it. But we didn't feel comfortable taking on the house as a remodel, a renovation project. We think it's really sort of too far gone. And I think some of the comments that were made over the course of the evening too, that the house is certainly not original to 1870. There may be parts of it that are, but it's had a lot of work done on it over the decades that have ensued. So I think that's all I have for now, but I'm happy to answer any questions or send comments as they come up.
Yeah, thank you for that. It wasn't recognizable that you were representing Baker Properties, so I apologize for not being able to call on you much earlier. Now that we have you, is there any questions for Keith?
Well, yes, the big one that Bill just asked. Why did you feel that you could not renovate this property?
Well, I think I think Matt addressed it too. If you've been in the house has a half store. It's probably not quite 6 foot of clearance for most of the house. The second story is pretty low. There's a lot of work that would need to be done. And our feeling on the economics of it is that we'd end up with a better project and a better result. if we started.
We got Nate with a question.
Nate Piper, 8 4th Street. Well, my question is simply, why did they buy it if they couldn't renovate it? I mean, why do you buy a historic house without plans to renovate it?
I think this
All
is
right, Matt.
better from a construction standpoint, and Nate and I are friends, hopefully. Again, I mean, there's a question, right? We could renovate this house, and I'm gonna go to the far side of the field. I could make that house, renovate it and fix it up and make it the most modern looking house that sticks out in this neighborhood like a sore thumb without tearing it down. Right? There would be nothing that would stop me from doing that at all, because there's a private landowner who owns their land and that's what they can do. The question always comes into, I'm not hearing any feedback. And so now I get to the point where I'm like, great, does anyone have any feedback on what they would actually like to see happen to this house? Because there is no staying value in keeping that home. It's structurally, it's not there. So even if lumber prices continue to drop to where they were 5 years ago, I cannot tell you that that house can be rebuilt in the way that you would like to see it. I also don't know that I've heard that there's any real historical value to the house. So I don't know why, you buy a property because people do this every day. That's too broad a question, unfortunately, Nate. I think it is. And to say, well, why would you buy it if you planned on changing it? Because everyone buys their house and plans on changing it. So,
That's my question, though. Did you buy it to demolish it?
I don't think that they did. Not because, and I say that because.
Well, that's not for you to answer, though.
Well, I can answer it because I was told to give a professional opinion on it a long time ago as to what could be done in saving the house versus not saving the house. So, when I looked at it, long before I believe that this presentation was put in, I reached out to Doug to find out, okay, what's the process here? And Doug and I walked through it. Ultimately, when it came right down to it, it was the house didn't have a salvageable value to it. And again, assumptions, I believe, are being made that we're not trying to do something that is going to
What was purchased to demolish?
We don't know that.
We don't know that.
We don't know that. That's an assumption.
Keith is on the call.
Yeah,
But don't you do a home inspection before, when you bought the property?
You don't have to. You don't have to do a home inspection.
I mean, you do it yourself, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but the question is, can it be renovated?
Well, you figured that out before you bought it.
Can it be? But if anyone in this room, I'll let.
We're going too far here. This is not for us. Why you bought the property or why the owner bought the property is really up.
Right, and I'm not the owner, so. But I can tell you from my personal experience as to why that is. If Keith is still on the call, he'll echo it as well, which is there was a question on whether what's there can be saved. And my professional opinion, if you guys can actually point this one at me, because I said there's no way what's there can be saved. So.
Well, as I mentioned in the very first part of this meeting before you came, that was the opinion of some very respected people, builders. I'm not. I'm not a builder at all, but they said when we were looking at it the very initial time with the hospital that you can't renovate this. It's got to be a tear down. Well, somebody did believe in it. They're doing it now. They're renovating. So there are people with different opinions, or whether somebody else might have looked at this and said, well, I think I can. So, and you've got a really good philosophy of building, and you, I'm sure, do some great job with the things you do. But there are other people who would look at this and say, I think I can make it, renovate it, it'll be cute, and it'll be cleaned up, and we'll make a few changes, especially inside, but from the outside it will look like it did. Never does now.
Dan, can we give Keith a chance to respond? He's got his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Can you hear me now? I'm not sure how this always works, but I don't have a comment.
Oh, okay. I saw your hand up, and I wanted to make sure you had a chance to speak. And this is my first time with it as well, so we're learning together.
It's like a boxer,
This-
you have to sit on your hand.
This hybrid model, yeah.
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 Paul DeGrandis, 23 Oak Street. I have a question just about the Heritage Commission here, or committee. Do you ever look at a property for reclaimed materials? Like, is that sort of in your purview or no? Like, if you could preserve this property, or there's a neighborhood that can't be preserved, or it's going to be, well, let's just go to this stream. Like, this entire neighborhood all wiped out, everybody does a rebuild. Is there any sort of purview for this committee to say, oh, those materials should be reused? They're materials from 1862 in my house, and of similar time, era. Is that in the purview of the committee?
John, is that something you respond?
Okay.
We can make.
So it's like preservation, or in that sort of the view.
We're not here to design buildings.
Okay.
We typically, in our letter of decision, will say, if the demolition proceeds to salvage, please try to we encourage this salvaging of materials
Gotcha.
and resale.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I was mostly curious. Thank you.
Good. Doug?
Just a parting shot. Doug Flockhart again. You're not a historic district commission. You're not a historic preservation commission. You're a heritage commission. I assume that means that your job is to do whatever you can within the limits of your scope of authority to protect our heritage. To me, that includes the character of the neighborhood, the character of the people who live there, the size and scale and look of the houses in the neighborhood, not just an individual house. Now, the question before you, of course, is the demolition of an individual house. But I would hope, since you are a heritage commission, that you would do your job and do your utmost to preserve the heritage of that neighborhood. If you can't do that, or if you won't do that, then why do you exist?
Is there any other public comment? Anything else to add from the members?
No, I think we can close the public hearing at this point if there's no other commentary, and then it comes back to the board for a decision. So I would move to close the public hearing on demolition of 10 Wadley Street.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, move to close this public portion of the meeting and start with a discussion and advisement. Anybody like to start?
I think I've already voiced my opinion. I'm ready for a motion, I guess.
Well, I feel like one of the things in our zoning ordinance is that we make our decision based on various pieces or levels of historic heritage. And I think this one falls under the retention of a structure that would help preserve or protect a historic place or of historic interest to the town. And there's been a lot of interest in this, in doing that survey that this commission did, has brought a lot more attention to that neighborhood and what makes it a neighborhood. When it was developed, it's called out, as Mr. Merkel said, it's called out in particular in the survey that was done for the Heritage Commission of the Park Street area. So, and for me, this building represents a growth pattern and a growth style of that neighborhood that I would prefer or request that it remain and be redeveloped or rehabilitated.
Would you care to make that in the form of a motion?
If there's
Any other thought?
If there's no other comment, yeah.
I mean, I'll make one comment just to add to that in terms of when I looked at the property, and I was at 110 High Street and an opportunity to review that as a demolition review, and I thought about that property as I looked at 10 Wadley Street, and I do believe it adds to the nature and character of the neighborhood, and as a mission of the Heritage Commission is kind of the test to make in terms of a recommendation. And so I at that time for 110 High Street, I recommended a renovation, and I feel the same way about this property.
Anybody else? Well, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion unless anyone else has input. I move to recommend preservation of this building because it is a piece of it. It's a resource, an historic resource to the heritage of that part of town as it's grown. Does that make sense?
I'll second the motion.
All right, seconded. Is there any further discussion?
I think Julie said it very well. And Ed's comments were good.
Yeah, and I'll add in terms of the discussion for the other public hearing, there's a lot of public support to preserve and renovate 110 High Street, and I feel that there was a lot of public support to preserve 10 Wadley Street in that same way. So, all those in favor of the proposal?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, none opposed. Motion carried.
Okay.
We have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
I make motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.